Okay, so let's talk about August 10th, 2019. This is the day one of the most infamous, high-profile inmates in the entire country was found dead in his cell. The official story, super clear. Jeffrey Epstein died by suicide. But, in the years since, that conclusion has gotten anything but settled. So what really went down? We're going to dive right into it. The evidence, the screw-ups, and the questions that honestly just refuse to go away.
So right out of the gate, the very highest levels of the Justice Department tried to shut down any and all speculation. The Attorney General himself, William Barr, comes out and says he personally reviewed the surveillance footage and it clearly showed nobody went into Epstein's cell area. The message was loud and clear. End of story. Nothing to see here. This was supposed to be the final authoritative word, but, well, it wasn't.
And yeah, that final word was challenged almost immediately. That official certainty just ran headfirst into a giant wall of public skepticism, and that skepticism was fueled by all these inconsistencies that started popping up from day one. The big question became, did the evidence actually back up that conclusion?
All right, so before we get into all the controversy, let's just lay out the official story. This is the baseline narrative, right? The version of events the authorities put forward. It's the foundation of the whole case.
So Epstein's been arrested on federal sex trafficking charges, and he's being held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in Manhattan. Then at 6:30 in the morning, guards find him unresponsive. The New York City medical examiner does an autopsy, and the official ruling comes down: suicide by hanging, using a strip of a bedsheet. Sounds simple, straightforward, or so you'd think.
That official story started to unravel almost right away, especially when the details of Epstein's final hours came out. Even the Attorney General later called it a perfect storm of screw-ups. And honestly, that might be putting it mildly.
This timeline is where things really start to fall apart. The gaps here are just staggering. His lawyers leave, and he's last seen by a guard around 10:30 p.m. He's not found until 6:30 the next morning. That's 8 hours. 8 straight hours with no proper checks on one of the most high-profile inmates in the country. And for a big chunk of that time, the 2 guards on duty were supposedly asleep, just 15 feet away from his cell.
And look at this. It wasn't just one little mistake. Oh no, this was a complete, total cascade of failures. The guards didn't just fall asleep. They apparently falsified records to cover their tracks. Then you have the 2 surveillance cameras right outside his cell. What do you know? They malfunctioned. He'd been taken off suicide watch, even after a previous incident where he was found semi-conscious with marks on his neck. And, get this, his cellmate gets moved out just the day before, leaving him totally alone. Any one of these things is bad, right? But put them all together, it creates this perfect black hole of information where it's almost impossible to know what really happened. A total system meltdown.
But it wasn't just the operational screw-ups that were raising red flags. The actual physical evidence became its own battleground. The very foundation of the suicide ruling, the autopsy itself, was challenged publicly, sparking this huge forensic fight that's still going on.
Okay, to really get this debate, you got to know about one tiny but super important piece of anatomy, the hyoid bone. It's this little U-shaped bone up in the front of your neck, and whether it breaks and how it breaks can tell forensic experts a whole lot about how somebody died.
Now, this is where it gets really fascinating. You have 2 completely different interpretations of the exact same evidence. On one side, you've got the official medical examiner, Dr. Sampson. She says it's a suicide and notes that the hyoid bone can break in hangings, especially with older men. But then you have Dr. Michael Baden, this famous pathologist hired by Epstein's brother. He comes to a totally different conclusion. He points to 3 separate fractures, something he says is basically unheard of in a suicide by hanging. For him, the injuries looked way more like homicidal strangulation. He even claimed the mark on Epstein's neck was too thin to have been made by a bedsheet.
So remember that clear video evidence the Attorney General talked about? Well, turns out maybe not so clear. An investigation that used the Justice Department's own diagrams showed the camera's view was pretty limited. It just didn't have a clean shot of Epstein's cell door. The main entrance and the staircase were mostly in blind spots. So that claim that the video proves no one went in kind of falls apart when you look at the actual layout. So, you've got this long list of screw-ups, a huge fight over the forensic evidence, and the official story just landed with a thud. For millions of people, it just didn't make sense. And that skepticism, it exploded into this massive cultural phenomena.
Just look at these numbers. This poll was taken only days after he died, and it shows you how deep that distrust was, right from the beginning. A full 42% of Americans immediately thought he was murdered to keep him from talking. That's way more than the 29% who believed the official story. This wasn't some fringe theory that grew over time. It was the mainstream belief right from the start.
And all that disbelief got boiled down into one of the most powerful memes of our time. Epstein didn't kill himself. It became this punchline you just tack onto the end of any sentence, a joke on live TV, a slogan on t-shirts, but underneath all that dark humor was something really serious, a widespread collapse of trust in our institutions to tell us the truth. So, with all this doubt and distrust, you get a vacuum. And with no convincing official story to fill it, a bunch of other theories rushed right in. Some of them plausible, some of them, well, a little out there.
The most popular theory, of course, is that he was killed to protect his powerful friends. But the speculation didn't end there. You started hearing more extreme ideas, like his death was faked, often fueled by blurry photos from who knows where, and newly released documents have even crazier, totally unverified allegations in them. See, this is what happens when you create a narrative vacuum.
Now, despite all the speculation, the official story hasn't changed one bit. In 2023, the Justice Department's Inspector General released a huge report. And while it absolutely slammed the Bureau of Prisons for its negligence and misconduct, it ultimately said it found no evidence to contradict the FBI's conclusion that Epstein died by suicide. For the government, the case is closed.
But for a huge part of the public, it's anything but closed. The Epstein case has become this massive flashing warning sign for what happens when an official narrative, even if it's true, is totally undermined by incompetence and a lack of transparency. It leaves us with a really fundamental question. In an age where we distrust our institutions so much, if an official story has this many holes in it, does the truth even stand a chance?